All right, let's get into one of history's most epic showdowns. We're talking about courage, about conflict, and about what happens when one person's discovery threatens the entire world order. This is the story of Galileo Galilei's trial.
I mean, just think about that for a second. The man figures out a fundamental truth about our universe, and his reward is to be punished. It's the absolute heart of this whole drama. So how on earth did it come to this?
To really get what happened to Galileo, you gotta understand the world he was born into. It was a very, very different time.
See, back in Galileo's day, you didn't just question the established order. It was dangerous. The world had one story, a mix of old Greek ideas and scripture. And in that story, Earth was the unmoving, absolute center of everything. And this wasn't just some theory, It was the foundation of reality, and it was guarded by the most powerful institution on the planet. And then along comes this guy, Galileo. He wasn't just a scientist, he was a rebel, really, just driven by this incredible curiosity. While everybody else was basically nodding along, Galileo just had to see for himself. He couldn't look away.
And his tool for seeing wasn't some ancient book or a divine revelation. Nope, it was a new piece of tech. He pointed his telescope up at the sky, not just with faith, but with this burning desire to look, to measure, and to actually know what was up there.
And what he saw through that simple little lens, well, it wasn't just going to challenge a few old ideas. Oh no, it was going to shake the world to its very core. First off, he saw that the moon wasn't some perfect, smooth orb like everyone thought. It had mountains and craters. It was a place, just like Earth. That alone blew people's minds. Then, he found moons circling Jupiter. This was a knockout blow. It proved right there that not everything in the cosmos revolved around the Earth. Each new discovery was another crack in the old reality, and they all pointed to one unthinkable conclusion. All of his observations pointed to this, the heliocentric model, the idea that the Earth isn't the center of it all, that we're just another planet hurtling through space going around the sun. It was the truth. But back then, it was an idea so dangerous they had another word for it: heresy. And this is where things get really intense. This is where science crashes headfirst into power, setting up one of the most famous confrontations in all of history. I mean, the conflict couldn't be clearer, right? On one side, you've got centuries of tradition, doctrine, and power, all saying the Earth is the special, unmoving center of God's creation. And on the other side, you've got Galileo with his telescope and his data saying, actually, it looks like we're the ones doing the moving. For the church, this wasn't some friendly academic debate. This was a challenge to their authority. If the Bible could be wrong about the heavens, what else could it be wrong about? If some guy with a looking glass could upend core belief, the whole system could unravel. Galileo's discovery wasn't seen as a discovery, it was seen as a threat. So, what do powerful institutions do when faced with an idea they can't control? They don't try to beat it with better evidence, they try to crush it with power. They decided Galileo had to be silenced. And that brings us to the trial itself, this incredible moment where Galileo, the man, was forced to make a choice that is just impossible. So imagine it. He's an old man brought before the Roman Inquisition. The entire weight of the establishment is bearing down on him. He could stick to the truth he'd seen with his own eyes, or he could save his own skin. What would you do in that position? The demand was brutal and simple. He had to deny everything, his entire life's work. He had to stand up in front of everyone and say that the Earth stands still, to reject the very reality he had worked so hard to uncover. And under threat of torture, he did it. He knelt, and he formally recanted. He said the words they forced him to say. He chose to survive. But the legend gives us this one unforgettable detail. As he was getting up, Galileo supposedly muttered under his breath, "Eppur si muove." And yet, it moves. It's this perfect, defiant whisper. His body could be forced to lie, but his mind, his soul, it still knew the truth. So Galileo lost. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest, a prisoner in his own home. They locked up the man. But what about the idea? Can you really put an idea in prison? Well, Galileo died, still a prisoner. But his ideas started a long, slow journey.
It took over 100 years, but eventually the church lifted the ban on books that taught his model. And then, get this, all the way in 1992, more than 350 years after they condemned him, the Vatican officially admitted that they had been wrong and Galileo had been right.
And that's the real takeaway here, isn't it? You can imprison a person, but you cannot imprison an idea. Once a truth like that is out in the world, it doesn't just go away. It travels. It finds new champions. It gathers more proof. And eventually, it just becomes undeniable. It's this incredible transformation. The very thing that was considered so dangerous it had to be stamped out by force is now one of the first things we teach our kids about the universe. What was once heresy is now basic knowledge. And the funny thing is, by trying so hard to silence him, they made him louder than ever. They made him a martyr for science. He became more than just an astronomer. He became a symbol of the fight for truth against dogma. In the end, sure, his personal story is a tragedy. He lost everything. But what he gave us in return, he completely redrew the map of the cosmos and redefined our place in it forever. And maybe that's the final lesson here. The truth doesn't always win on the day. Sometimes it gets silenced, sometimes it gets buried, but truth is patient. It doesn't mind waiting for the rest of the world to finally catch up.